This is the Talmud and Haggada shir for April the 2nd. I was in the middle of Englishing the Gemara when part 1 ended. I believe I was up to near the top of Lamed Aleph, beginning of the Gemara, where it says Sha'ar Yimos HaPesach. It's about the third line into the Gemara. The other days of Pesach, after the first 2 days, Malaked, you gather and read topics of Pesach, and what is it? Rav Papa says Mem Aleph, Pei Vav is your siman. The Mem stands for Mishchu Ikchu Lachem, which is when Hashem tells the Bnei Yisrael to take a Korban Pesach when they were in Mitzrayim. The Aleph stands for Im Kesef Talva, which is a parsha in Mishpatim, which mentions Pesach. The Pei is Psal Lecha, which is a parsha in Kitisa, which also mentions Pesach. And the Vav is Vaidaber Hashem El Moshe, which is in Parshas Baloischa, which talks about Pesach Sheni. On the Shvi Shel Pesach, we read Vahi B'Shalach, because on Shvi Shel Pesach was Kriyat Yamsuf. And the Haftorah is Vaidaber David from Shmuel Bet Perik Chav Bet, because that's the Shir of David, which corresponds to the Shir of Moshe in B'Shalach. The last day of Pesach, which is Achron Shel Pesach, we read Kol HaBchor, which is in Re'eh, and the Haftorah is Od Hayom, which is in Yeshaya Perik Yud, because that Haftorah has to do with Sancherib, the king of Ashur, waving his hand over Jerusalem and threatening to destroy it, and in the end God destroyed his army, and that happened on Pesach. Abaye says V'ho'idna, which in French is maintenant. The world has a custom to read Mishach. The first day of Pesach we read Mishchu Ekhu Lachem from Bo, Torah, Shoro Kesef from Emor, Kadesh Likol B'chor from Bo, Bekaspa, Im Kesef Talva es Ami from Mishpatim, Psal Lecha Shnei Luchos Avonim from Kitisa, B'madbara, the parsha of Pesach Sheni in Bahalotcha, Shalach, B'Shalach Paro et Ha'am from Parshat B'Shalach, and Buchra Kol HaBchor from Parshat Re'eh. On Shavuot, we read Shiva Shavuot, but actually it's in Re'eh, which starts with Kol HaBchor, and the Haftorah is Chavakuk, which talks about Matan Torah, which was given on Shavuot. Acherim say that on Shavuot we should read B'Chodesh HaShlishi from Yitro, which talks about when the Jews arrived at Har Sinai. And the Haftorah is the Merkava, God's chariot, because he came to Har Sinai, so to speak, with his chariot. It's Yechezkel Perik Aleph. Today, that there are 2 days of Shavuot, we actually do both, but we reverse it. On the first day we read Yitro, B'Chodesh HaShlishi, when the Jews came to Har Sinai, and the Haftorah is in Yechezkel, God's chariot. On the second day we read Kol HaBchor, which includes Shiva Shavuot, and the Haftorah is Chavakuk. On Rosh Hashanah, we read B'Chodesh HaShvi'i, which is from Emor. Actually, we start from Shoro Kesef, and the Haftorah is Haben Yakir Li Ephraim in Yirmiyahu Perik Lamed Aleph, that God says, the Jews are my dear child. Some say that on Rosh Hashanah we should read Hashem Pokad Es Sora from Parshas Vayera, where Hashem judged Sora on Rosh Hashanah that she should have a child, and the Haftorah is Chana, because God on Rosh Hashanah judged Chana that she should have a child. Now that we have 2 days Rosh Hashanah, on the first day we do the Yesh Omrim, where we read about Hashem Pokad as Sora having a child, and the Haftorah is Chana having a child. The second day, instead of reading B'Chodesh HaShvi, we read B'Ha Elokim Nisa et Avram, which is the end of Parshas Vayera, of the Haggada, to remember the Haggada of Yitzchak. On Rosh Hashanah also, we say Psukim of the Zichronot, Hashem should remember. One of the things we want Hashem to remember is Haggada's Yitzchak, and the Haftorah is Kiko Amar Ram Venisa, so says Hashem, who's high and elevated, because that parsha there in Yeshaya Nun Zayin talks about Tshuva. Mincha Yom Kippur, we read Arayot, we read about the sexually prohibited relationships at the end of Achremot, and the Haftorah is Sefer Yonah, which talks about the Tshuva of the city of Nineveh. I believe I missed this line when I was reading the Gemara the first time. So one more time, I'll do it a second time. Uva mincha korim ba'arayot, Yom Kippur Mincha, we read the second half of Achremot Arayot, because if anybody sinned, he should remember to do tshuva if he did anything that was sexually inappropriate. And the Haftorah is in Sefer Yonah because the city of Nineveh did tshuva. Rabbi Yochanan says, wherever you find the Gevurato, the power of God, you also find His humility. This is written in Torah, it's repeated in Nevi'im, and a third time in Ketuvim. It's written in Torah, Ki Hashem Elokeichem hu Elohehu Elohim v'Adonehu Adonim. Hashem is the most powerful. It's written afterwards, Osa Mishpat Yotam Valmana. God deals with the humble orphan and widow. It's repeated in Nevi'im, Ko Amar Ram V'Nisa Shochan Ad V'Kadosh. So says Hashem, who's elevated and high, who rests forever and is holy. And it's written afterwards, Vesdaka Shval Ruach. God is close to the lowly and the humble of spirit. A third time in Ketuvim, in Tehillim, it's written, Solu L'Rochev Ba'aravot B'Kol Shemo. Say praise to the one who rides the highest heaven, God is his name. And afterwards it's written, Avi Yisomim V'Dayan Almanot. He's the father of orphans and the judge of widows. So no matter how high Hashem is, Hashem cares about each and every smallest individual. On the first day of Sukkot, you read the Parsha of Moadot, of the holidays, which is found in Sefer Vayikra, in Emor. And the Haftorah is Hina Yom Ba'al Hashem from Zechariah. Today that we have 2 days, the second day we read the same as the first day, the Parsha of Moadot, that's Shoro Kesef in Emor, and what will be the Haftorah? So the second day the Haftorah will be Vayikalu El HaMelech Shlomo. People gathered to King Shlomo in the month of Tishrei on Sukkot, which followed the 7 days of initiation of the Beis HaMikdash. On the other days of Sukkot, we read all the Korbanot of Sukkot, B'Yom HaSheni, B'Yom HaShlishi, B'Yom HaRevi, which are found in Pinchas. On Shmini Atzeret, we read Kol HaBchor. That's in Parshat Re'eh. We actually start from Aser to Aser, because it has all the mitzvot and the chukim of tzedakah, because Sukkot is a good time to give tzedakah, because that's when you brought in your harvest. And of course we read Kol HaBchor. And the Haftorah is Vahike Chalot Shlomo, when Shlomo finished speaking, he blessed the people and sent them home. The following day, on Simchas Torah, we read V'zot HaBracha, and the Haftorah is Vayamot Shlomo. Shlomo stood and blessed the people. But today we do the Haftorah of Yehoshua, because right after V'zot HaBracha, we start Sefer Yehoshua. So in a couple of days, Mirat Hashem will be finishing the Masechta, and hopefully we will be able to make a siyum for the Bechorim on Erev Pesach. I'm now going to do a little bit of Haggada with you, a little bit. If any of you have questions on the Haggada or on the Gemara, you're welcome to email me or to text me or to call me, and if I know the answers, I will share them on the next video. Yesterday we were doing the second pasuk in the Haggada, which was opening the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim. I'm up to the Haggada where it says Vayanunu, and they made us suffer, as the pasuk says. And I'm just translating the pasuk. They put tax masters over us in order to make the Jews suffer with their burdens, and they built storage cities for Paro, Pitom and Ramses. There were tax masters. The tax was not money, the tax was labor. But the purpose of the tax was not to accomplish anything. You see, the Torah says that you're not allowed to, if you have a Jewish slave, you're not allowed to make him work avodat perech, crushing work. What's crushing work? When you make somebody work and do something for no purpose, busy work, that crushes a person. Tells a person that his time is not important, his life is not important. When they built Pitom and Ramses, the Gemara says that Pitom and Ramses either used to sink into the ground because it was built on quicksand, or the materials they used to crumble. So there was no use in what they were doing. So the tax masters who taxed them to work never actually got any real physical accomplishment from them. It was Lamana Noisa B'Savloisam. It's just to make them suffer. And Vayanunu, that is the ultimate suffering. The next phrase in the pasuk is Vayitno Leino Vodakasha. They gave us hard work. And the pasuk says in Shemot that the Egyptians made the Bnei Yisrael work befarach. The Gemara says in Sota, really hard work is where you give somebody work that he's really not used to. If there's work that a man was used to, they gave it to women. If there was work that a woman was used to, they gave it to men. Again, that's not the way to be productive. You don't give somebody something to do that he's not used to doing. But the purpose was not productivity. The purpose was to crush, to dehumanize, to discourage. The next pasuk is Vanitzak al Hashem Elokei Avotenu. We cried out to Hashem, Vayishma Hashem es kolenu. Hashem heard our voice. Vayaret Anyenu v'tamalenu v'tlachtzenu. He saw our plight, our toil, and our oppression. We cried out to Hashem. And there's a pasuk. It was during those days, a pasuk in Shemot, and the king of Egypt died, and the Jews sighed from their work, and they cried, and their screams went up to God from their work. There's a midrash that the king of Egypt didn't really die. What happened was that he became Mitzora, and he was told that if he bathes in the blood of Jewish children, he'll be healed from his tzaras. The Gra says, because it says the king of Egypt died, and usually when it's time for a king to die, it doesn't mention king, like it says, Vayikruvu Yimei David Lamut. It became close for David's time to die. It doesn't say Melech David, because there is no king when you come to die. Everybody dies, and all of a sudden your position is not important. So why would it say here Vayamat Melech Mitzrayim? Why does it call him the king of Mitzrayim? Why doesn't it say Paro? The answer is because he was still king. What he had was something which was akin to death. He became a leper. It's called leprosy. He became Mitzora, and that's what happened to him. And the Jews cried out. It doesn't say what they said. It says they cried, because sometimes people don't even have the ability to speak. There's just a primal scream that screams out from within them. That primal scream that came out from within them, Hasidic Sfarim write, rose up to God, Vatal Shavosam Elokim Min Avoda, greater than any service. Sometimes when a person doesn't have any more, and he just says, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. God, I believe in you, I believe you are one. That simple sentence sometimes is greater than other people saying long tefillahs. And sometimes just a simple scream to God by saying, I can't even express myself, is even higher than anything. Vayishma Hashem et kolenu. Hashem heard our voices. Doesn't say he heard what we said, he heard our voices. And the pasuk says, Hashem heard their cry, and he remembered his covenant with Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Vayaret Anyenu, he saw our plight. The Haggada explains, Uprishut derech eretz. It's subtle. The Egyptians tried to separate the Jews from the way of the land. The way of the land was that the men would have relations with the women, be able to have children. But one of the things the Egyptians did was they separated the men from the women. They sent the men out and the women in, or vice versa. And the pasuk says, Hashem saw the Bnei Israel, and he knew what the Egyptians were doing. Sometimes they would do subtle things, sneaky things, in order to diminish our population, in order to harm us, to discourage us, but God knew. Ves Amalenu, God saw our toil. Elu Abanim, those are the children. Pasuk says every son that was born would be thrown into the river, and the girls, they would let live. We suffered on both counts. We suffered from the boys that would be thrown into the river, and we suffered from the girls that would be allowed to live. But what kind of life would they have if there would be no boys and they would be taken by the Egyptians? This is called our toil. Amalenu, our toil is our children, because the toil of parents is in their children. That's where their labor goes. That's where their concentration goes. That's where their love goes. That's where their assets go, into their children. It's interesting that the Gemara in Sota says that when they were decreeing to kill the children, Amram said to his wife Yocheved, L'shav anu amelim, we're toiling for nothing that we have children. I mean, his daughter Miriam corrected him and said, Father, don't give up. Let's have children. You'll see there'll be a future. But what you see there is the word amalenu, our toil is our children. Betlachtzenu, our oppression. Zatchak, oppression. God saw the oppression that they oppressed us. They used psychological pressure on us to keep turning the screws tighter and tighter. You know that at the end of Parshat Shemot, they said, you need to make bricks and we're not giving you straw anymore. But the quantity of bricks are the same. The screws got tighter and tighter until we screamed. We couldn't take it anymore. We were so frightened. And God took us out, V'yetzeinu Hashem Mitzrayim, Hashem took us out, B'yod chazaka, B'zroa netuya, U'mayra gadol, B'oises of Mavsim. And God took us out with a strong hand, outstretched arm, with great awe and fear, with signs and wonders. Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim. Hashem took us out, nobody else. Pasuk says, V'avarti, I will cross Egypt, V'ikesi, I will strike the firstborn. I will judge them, I am Hashem, I, and no other. I believe I told you this. Why was it that Makat B'chorot happened through God and not through an angel, not through anyone else? I believe I told you, and I'm repeating it again for anybody that hasn't heard it or doesn't remember, that a parable, there was a king whose son was captured by terrorists, and for a long time the king and the soldiers couldn't find the prince. Eventually, when they found him in a building, so the soldiers, the head of the commando unit, came to tell the king, we've located the terrorists, we located your son, they're holed up in a building. The king says, what do we do? He says, well, we're going to first break them down psychologically, we'll cut off their water, we'll cut off their light, we'll make noises, we'll keep them up. And then when we've broken them down psychologically, we will blast the doors open and we'll grab your son. And the king says, I like the idea, but when it comes time to blast the doors and grab my son, I want to be the first one through the doors. So the head of the commando unit said, Your Majesty, why is that? And I'm saying it short because most of you, I think, heard this from me before. So the king explained, because my son has been with them for so long that it could be my son has started even to identify with them. My son has started to dress like them and talk like them and behave like them and look like them. And all of a sudden, when you're going to blast the doors and the firefight will start and the shooting will begin, you'll kill him and you'll come to me and you'll apologize. You'll say, we could have no way of telling which one was a terrorist and which was one your son. They seemed all alike. And therefore, I want to go through the doors first because I will recognize my son. Hashem says, B'ni B'chori Yisrael, the Jewish people are my children. And even though it seems that when the Jews were in Egypt, some of them also did idol worship like the Egyptians did. But the Egyptians did it because they believed in this idol worship, and the Jews did it because they were just going along in order to survive. But who's going to be able to tell? After so many years, after so much time, God forbid, maybe the Jews look like the Egyptians, or some of them look like the Egyptians. And it comes time to Makat B'chorot to make sure that we pick the Jews out from between the Egyptians. Therefore Hashem says, when it comes to Makat B'chorot, when you blow the doors, when you do Dam Tzvardei and Kinem, when you break them down psychologically, you guys can do that. The Malachim can do that. You can weaken them, you can discourage them, you can break them down. When the moment of truth comes, when I have to grab my child from the others, Ani v'lo malach, ani v'lo saraf, ani v'lo shliach, ani Hashem v'lo achar. Only I'm going to blow the doors, nobody else. I'm going to stop here. I hope you're all well. I miss you all. I hope you and your families are healthy. I hope you're having successful days. And I would appreciate if you have questions or anything that you think I might be able to answer, to be in touch with me. And I'll try to answer to the best of my ability.